This is Declan McGonigal with the My Beach Business Podcast, where we talk with local business owners and investors on a variety of subjects. I hope you enjoy the show, and thanks for listening. Okay, cool. Another episode of the My Beach Business Podcast. I'm here with Colin today. Colin, let me make sure I got your background right. So, D1 college basketball player. You've got the Manzer Basketball Academy, podcaster. Right, you've got a podcast, author. You've got the Better Men. I guess it's not really a business community, more
personal development
yep. community. And you're also a public speaker, right?
Yep.
Is that just about everything? Did I miss anything?
I mean, sure, that sums it up.
Yeah.
I still, basketball training and basketball's been a ton of my background, but then have now shifted over to training individuals, coaching and training, and corporate speaking. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Which one of those is your favorite? What do you like most right now? Do you have a favorite?
I don't. Okay. I love teaching.
Right.
So in the speaking world, I get some of that. Certainly in personal coaching and consulting, I get some of that.
Yeah.
But I like teaching through writing as well. So I have 2 books, awesome. And I'll keep pumping out more books as there's opportunities for me to learn, share my experience, and
what that's what I was kind of wondering. At what moment so when you finished up with basketball, did you finish up with school as well? Did you go through all that in college? Yep. Did you right after that? Did you jump into?
No, I became a banker.
Oh, really?
I didn't know what else to do. You know, really? We're in Myrtle Beach, and the there's tourism.
Yeah.
And then there's
not much industry.
So I got out, I'm not from here. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. So it was kind of like, some people had suggested that I go the banking route and just see where it takes me. So I was a banker for a few years, and I started training players while I was a banker. And so there was this shift. I always had an entrepreneurial spirit about me.
Yeah.
And so I would leave the bank and go train players at the gym. Yeah. And then after a couple of years of that, my training business got to the point where I was actually able to leave the bank.
Wow.
And, I played for the South Carolina Warriors that couple of years that they were here. The first year they were here, Chris Beard was the coach, who's a fantastic coach in college now. And so that's how I got out of the banking world and into entrepreneurship, and then realized that I had a desire to teach and communicate, and so I used basketball as that avenue for a really long time.
Gotcha. That's awesome. And when you started out in that, was the entrepreneurial path just kind of natural for you? Was there a lot of road bumps, highs and lows, just in terms of like the business?
Sure.
Business side of it?
And so in what I was doing, certainly a service industry, the challenges are you don't get just to do the job, right?
Yeah.
You've got to keep the books. Yeah. You've got to market.
Do everything.
You've got to, You've got to run a business, right?
Yeah.
And so I think for a while I was kind of a solopreneur where it was just me, and then as I started hiring people and my business started growing, then it really developed into a company, and it was something that I was running. And so there's certainly been a challenge of being the leader, but also being the operator.
Right.
And then trying to dial back being the operator and hiring more people and training people and trusting people and leading people.
Right.
That's been the biggest area of growth and challenge for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I got to go to one of your conferences, talks, and that was one of the big things I took away from it. And I didn't know what I was expecting walking into it. I heard a lot about you. I met you kind of in passing. I know, we've got mutual friends that I've heard from you from. My big takeaway from that was, the biggest thing with leadership is that you've really got to get it figured out with yourself first before you can take that step to leading others.
100%.
And why is that important?
Okay, so leadership is often seen as a position, but leadership is a privilege,
right?
Because we are influencing people,
right?
And so a lot of times we want we want leadership because it means that we have the higher title, we get the higher pay, we get the spotlight, we get all the stuff that comes along with leadership.
Yep.
But leadership itself is a privilege because you are influencing people. So if who we are fundamentally does not influence well because we're too concerned with ourselves, then we don't actually move the whole group forward. We might just be takers, right? And so I am a fan of leaders that get into the position and want to be givers. They are working on themselves. They are developing their own levels of accountability and expectations so that when they go to influence people, right, they can do so with kindness and care, still having high expectations and being demanding without being demeaning. Right. So leadership is wildly complicated, and I think the better foundation of character that we have, the better we're going to lead.
Right. And were you a team captain when you played basketball?
I was.
Okay.
So
it started there.
Yeah. So
gotcha.
I was a team captain in high school.
Right.
For several years, and then when I got to college, I was a walk-on. So then I earned a scholarship, and after I earned a scholarship, I earned a starting position, and then I earned a starting position. Then my senior year, I was team captain.
Wow!
So I had certainly a grind to get to that level.
You earned it,
right?
Yeah.
But leadership, being out in front, has not been something that's scared me, but it's been something that, as I've even gotten older, I've seen the importance of also developing understanding of leadership, not just being willing to go first or being the loudest person, but really developing understanding the people that you're leading and how to motivate them individually.
Right.
But it's certainly always been a part of me.
Definitely. And how has that changed from when you first start high school or middle school, whatever it is, and you're captain of the team, right? You don't really, I got to be a captain, I think my senior year as well. You know what? I don't want to get exposed, so I don't think it was for high school, but I was team captain on the club soccer team.
Yeah.
But back then, I kind of think back on it, and I feel like there was a lot of missed opportunity with how I could have led. Were you always sort of a natural leader and it came natural to you, and then you developed it more as you got into the position you're in now? I mean, of course it develops.
Sure.
Did you always see it the same way?
No,
as far as the responsibility?
Did not see the responsibility the same way. And had I seen it earlier, I would have demanded more of myself when I was younger.
Right.
Because I've always been comfortable communicating. I've always had the self-assurance to be able to go out and do the thing, whether it's basketball or within my company or, leading groups of people or men or whatever. But it is, as I've gotten older and had more experience and seen the times that I've failed or my flaws as a leader, it's been when maybe I'm expecting more out of the group than I'm expecting from myself. Or maybe I'm expecting them to do something that I haven't yet done. And so I think power in leadership really, really comes from using our influence, because we are not just going out in front, but we are going with. So leadership it's a together thing and not of a dictator thing. It's a, hey, I'm with you and I'm willing to do what I'm asking you to do. I think that's one of the things, The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, that saved us from the pandemic. Anybody that was able to watch it, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's fantastic. Yeah.
But he was saying, I'm not going to ask any of these guys to do something I'm not willing to do. And when Jordan hit that sort of level of leadership, which Phil Jackson helped cultivate within him, he elevated the team. He wasn't just the star player. So I think when I was younger, I was okay with just doing what I was doing, but I didn't realize, had I leveled up and been more demanding of myself, I would have been a better leader, because I would have seen things from a higher perspective, a higher point of view that would have helped the team even more.
Yeah, absolutely. So who along that journey, people, was it coaches, was it a teacher? I'm sure there's multiple people that have kind of crafted you and really helped develop you in terms of getting that understanding of leadership. Is there certain people that come to mind, or just...
Certainly. I mean, there's coaches. If I look at, the coaches that I've played for, my high school coach and into my college coaches, like I feel like I kind of take something from each one of them, because they all have different leadership styles, right? And to be able to see what it is that they had that I appreciate and I see maybe I lack. The influence there. Coach Conroy is the head coach at the Citadel right now, and he's had head coaching jobs all over college basketball, and he's just a fantastic operator. Doesn't allow his emotions to get the best of him. Like, he's very even keel. Coach Beard, who's now at Ole Miss and has had success everywhere he's gone, is just an incredible worker. Like, his work ethic is like above everybody else's, and therefore he drives his coaches and his staff to do the same, and then the team follows. So it's so everybody that I've come across, I really try to take something from them. Even some of the coaches that I didn't get along with, like spectacularly, there's something that I could take from them. And certainly, like the coach that Coach Strickland, who was my first college coach, he gave me an opportunity. Right. And so there's something that to be said in that, like, I want to be a person who gives other hungry people opportunities. Because Coach Strickland did that for me.
It's interesting because, and I saw when you were talking about them, when you've been around good leaders, it's just like it's just infectious isn't the right word, but it's just inspirational isn't even the right word, but it's like uplifting. It just fills you with like, let's go. Let's get after it. And I the same thing when I think about powerful people, powerful leaders in my life that have been influential. I talk about them, and you light up just because it instills or brings out a sense of like pride and I guess that motivation, right? It's
each one of those guys that I was just talking about, and there are also women who have influenced me as well. But those guys that I'm talking about also challenged the hell out of me. Like it's not just like, oh wow, we just have this great relationship and everything. No, like they wanted to bring more out of me. And because of that, they challenged me and weren't willing to come off of that, because part of leadership is getting the most out of people or getting the most out of your group. And to be able to do that, you have to challenge everybody to level up. And to be able to do that well and effectively, that's what special leaders are made of.
Absolutely. What about people today, if that's an area they want to improve, right? I mean, it's definitely an area I want to improve, just, in terms of the business side and also just being a better person, right? Those people have a big impact, but if people want to improve their leadership skills, today, like, what are some things they can do? What are some opportunities?
I think first start with learning, like reading podcasts. Start following some people that inspire you, because everybody's inspired in different ways and by different people. But I think also what's really important is to get clear on what leadership means to you, right? So leadership, while it's a very general term, it spans across all industries. It's one of the reasons that it's really easy to talk about because it's so general. But the reality is we all have different definitions of what leadership means to us. So if we can clearly define what we believe good leadership is, then we can pursue that. But if it's too general, then we're just like, oh, leadership's just talking a lot, because there's plenty of public speakers out there who are phenomenal public speakers, but maybe they're not good leaders. And just because somebody's talking doesn't mean that they know how to lead. And so I think maybe finding people who are also in your industry or in your niche and saying, you know what, I like their style. I like the way that they relate to their people. I like their work ethic or whatever it is we respect about them, and read about them. And don't just read about their successes. Read about the struggle. Like, read about the path. Like figure out what their path was, because a lot of times we get inspired so much by the achievement that we have, or that they have, the leader. But if we can tune in also to the struggle, that's where we feel more similar, because we're on our path, right? They've already reached a place where we're like, dang, I want to be there one day. But when we connect with the the obstacles that they overcame and the adversity that they've gone through,
Right.
then we're like, oh, well, maybe we're not in the worst spot right now.
Right. And I feel like too, it also makes it realistic.
Yes.
You know, I think people seeing things is. I'm a big believer in most people have to see someone there, someone that's done it to sometimes believe they can do it.
For sure.
You know, they've got to see somebody, they've got to know somebody. So yeah, to your point, maybe seeing the struggle and the weaknesses in that person is a better way to relate to it.
Yeah.
And
the fact that they still hit the achievement. They still have become a leader, right? And so that's where we're like, oh, well, we could probably do it too.
Yeah.
You know, and then you get those leaders that still breathe life into, you know, if you can connect and you get mentored by somebody, it's phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's where I feel like sports is such a benefit for anybody who can play. Like, you've got coaches that are actually coaching you all the time.
Right.
You know, and then we get removed and then we get into the, you know, open world of business and life, and it's like, well, who's coaching me now? You know, who's guiding me now? And a lot of times, you know, we go to work and we just do the work, but nobody's pushing us and challenging us unless it's sales goals or something like that. But who's guiding us? Who's teaching us? Who's pulling the best out of us? You know, on a character type basis.
So what have been those moments for you then? What have been the struggles for you? Right? What have been those hurdles or inflection type moments, coming to Jesus type moments where you're like, you know, all right, I've got to alter something here. I got to change, or I really got to buckle down to fight through this.
Yeah. So one of my holes in leadership has been holding people accountable, having difficult conversations with employees, firing bad employees, dealing with like legit conflict that is harmful to my business. A couple years ago, I was on a run, and I just I was getting back to being healthy from going through a sickness of 6 or 7 months where I couldn't work out. So I was grateful to be on this run, and running is a place where I think well. And I get part of the way through, and I just kind of want to quit, and so stuff starts coming up, you know, and my mind gets soft and yada yada, but I told myself I was going to run for a certain time. I think it was 20 minutes.
Right.
And I was like, man, I feel like quitting right now, and I'm struggling with holding myself accountable to go in the 20 minutes. Somehow it clicked in my mind that the reason that I was having trouble holding my people accountable is because I was having trouble holding myself accountable. So the correlation of you can't give something you don't have, right? I didn't have the accountability within myself to then actually have hard conversations and get honest with people.
Right.
Because accountability is something that you actually do for somebody. Right? Somebody doesn't want to be doing badly in their job. And if I don't speak with them about it, then how can they even get better?
Right.
But if I'm having trouble looking in the mirror and dealing with some of the stuff that I don't like, that's ugly, that I am not willing to be honest with myself with, then of course I can't do that with other people.
Right.
So that's been a recent one, maybe in the past couple of years, of like, oh, I need to really dig in and see what I'm running away from, in a sense, so that I can better lead my business and help other people. If I'm calling myself a leader, then I need to be able to do X, Y, and Z.
Right. And was there? So you realize it's an accountability issue. What do you do from there? Is it you know, you start thinking about ideas? How can I be more accountable? Is it just the realization of that? Maybe the self-realization of that, like, okay, I need to do a better job of being accountable. Here's some areas I can improve in. Was it a quick fix, or was it
not a quick fix?
Okay.
I don't believe there are quick fixes.
Right. Not good ones.
Certain. Right. Yeah. So in that regard, it was stop running away from the truth. Allow people to challenge me on my accountability, and then recognize that when I am not holding myself accountable, I'm actually not desiring excellence. I'm not pursuing excellence within myself or within my business. And being around some leaders and seeing their level of accountability has also been like, I see.
Yeah.
I see what I've been unwilling to do.
Yeah.
And I don't like that.
Right.
So then it's having the recognition, the awareness of it, and then, allowing when the alarm system goes off to be like, okay, this is where I've got to make a change. My pattern has been this way in the past, and now I'm not willing to do that anymore because I have, bigger goals and aspirations.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think, kind of a side question, but do you think, I think a big thing for accountability, because you are in one area, what's the saying? If you do one thing,
the way you do one thing is the way you do all things.
Do all things, right? And I think fitness, sports, physical activity, any sort of that stuff, it's such an immediate, not pain, but it's such an immediate struggle, right? It's very recognizable. You go to the gym, you start lifting weights, you get tired pretty quick. You have a moment where you're like, okay, do I quit and do I leave, or do I really stay accountable, disciplined, all that good stuff, and fight through it? Do you think that, going back to that run, do you think there was something about like the physical aspect of being like, okay,
100%, and that's why, even with that's something I will challenge with anybody that I teach, is how they are with their physical fitness, because physical fitness impacts mental and emotional fitness, impacts everything that we do all the time.
Right.
And most of us run away from it because it's uncomfortable. Yeah. And there's something within our society that tells us we should always be comfortable.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's weird,
And if we're not comfortable, then something's wrong.
Right.
And the reality is that discomfort is coming our way whether we choose it or not.
Yeah.
So the stronger that we are, the more prepared we are, the more comfortable we are with discomfort, the better we're going to be able to deal with it.
Right.
See what happens when we believe that we're supposed to be comfortable. When the discomfort comes, we're like, oh no, something's wrong, run away.
Right, yeah.
And that was kind of what I was experiencing with accountability kind of stuff, right? It was so uncomfortable and I wasn't comfortable dealing with it. So I was just like, I'll just push it to the side.
Right.
Maybe I'll deal with that tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so when you take this hard look in the mirror and you get really honest with yourself, and then you go like, okay, I'm really just not getting it done.
Right.
So I have two choices. I can keep going that way, which I know where that road leads.
Right.
Or I can make the change, and I can see what happens when I go into the discomfort. So yes, I work out 6 or 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day, because I don't want to embrace complacency.
Right.
And then that also, I think honestly, for some people working out, it might be the easier thing to do.
Yeah.
But it also, that helps with, hey, I can also deal with taking on hard conversations, whether it's with my wife and my kids, or whether it's my business, or whether it's sales calls, or prospecting, or whatever it is. It certainly bleeds over. So does the avoidance.
Right.
So the goal is to not to avoid.
Right. Right. Do you work out in the morning? Are you?
I don't. I work out. I wake up, get my kids ready for school, and then I have some time to get my stuff together. Right. And after about 2 hours after I wake up, 2-3 hours after I wake up, I work out.
So it's still pretty early.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's before lunch.
Yeah.
I do intermittent fasting.
Right.
If I do a cold plunge, that's also something where I go into the discomfort of a cold shower, cold plunge like that, and that to me that's more challenging than working out.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Because it's a deliberate decision.
Yeah.
And then when it's cold outside, you know. So
it's funny. I remember you guys talking about that at the conference.
Yep.
And I can't remember his name, but
Bruce.
Yeah, yep. Bruce. He was like, if you can't do the cold shower, just start out with sticking your hand in a cold sink.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've been doing that lately for that reason, because. And that's why I was asking if you work out in the morning, because I think it's I think it sets the tone.
Yeah.
Right? Like you go do that, most mornings for me, I was talking about it with a buddy. I enjoy going to the gym, and I know it's good for me, but sometimes you wake up and it's just a struggle.
Sure.
Like me thinking about it now, I love going to the gym. But I wake up at 5:30 or 6, and I got to go to the gym, and I got to fight through it. And my workout today's got to be better from yesterday, right? Like you were saying about complacency. So I think just starting in the morning is so powerful. I mean, if you can do a cold shower in the morning, do a workout, you're gonna. I mean, I feel like you can't have a bad day. At that point.
Yeah.
I mean, unless something terrible happens.
Well, right, and that's when you are doing the things that are good for you,
Yeah.
that are uncomfortable,
Right.
what else is going to come along your day, other than some catastrophic type stuff?
Yeah.
But like when it comes to business and it comes to relationships, like you're going to have yourself pretty put together, and discomfort is not going to scare you from taking on what needs to be taken on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think it's really important in terms of people have to find their flow.
Right.
For you, the morning is great. For me, like mid-morning is great. Some people love working out at night.
Right.
Some people work the night shift. You've got nurses and doctors who work different shifts. You've got people who work third shift. You've got, so like, I think what's most important when it comes to routine or whatever is that people find what fits them and not compare it to somebody else's routine.
Right.
Because otherwise, it's kind of square peg and round hole, and that never works out well.
Right. You do think it's important? How important is a morning routine? You think it's good to have a developed, like, okay, I'm going to knock out this, and this, and then get my day going?
What's funny is routine can sometimes, for some people, feel like too much structure. Right. Like they want to be more free flowing. Yeah. For some people, they have to have routine, or they just go a little crazy. Yeah. The reality is, we all have routine, whether we've established it or not. Yeah. Right. And we all have thought patterns. Apparently, like 90% of our thought patterns, our thoughts, are the same as the thoughts of the previous day.
Oh, really?
So if you even think about that from a thought perspective, if I'm having the same thoughts that I had, 90% of them as yesterday, and like the patterns, of course, are going to be the same.
Yeah.
I do think a routine is important, but I think it should be a routine that gives you life instead of a routine that drags you down. Right. And it doesn't mean that it should be an easy routine. It's just, I think the best thing about routine is that it leads you into action without you having to think too much about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And structure-wise, I think that helps.
Yeah, and that's what I like. I like the discipline of having the routine and doing these consistent things that, I really don't enjoy too much. Like one of them is meditation. Because I'm always, especially my generation, right? I feel like we're always in our head. We're always thinking about a million different things. Do you do any sort of meditation? Do you have any sort of like mindful?
That's part of the gap. That why I don't go work out right away is I spend 5 to 10 minutes of just getting quiet, getting mindful on what my purpose is for the day, on what my desires are in life, how I want to be with people, and just get my mind associated around that, because meditation allows us to focus, man. Right. And we are in a time where everything is demanding our attention. And like, if you don't know where your phone is, like you might have an anxiety attack, right? So we always have this thing that's right next to us, demanding our attention, notifying us of all the stuff. If we don't get clear in our heads on what life we desire, we'll start to, wherever our phone leads us, it'll go, or wherever our job is pulling us, it'll go. So we have to be very intentional on setting our expectations, but also dialing down all of the voices that could be going on in our head and all of the demands, so that we are intentionally going into our day versus reactively.
Yeah, absolutely. Meditation is really important, and the mindfulness aspect is huge. Another thing I took away, I keep coming back to that conference, but it was really good.
Good, because we're having another one coming up in a couple of months. Yeah,
here locally.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, I'll be there. Count me in. But another piece I heard from that, and I think it stuck with me because, we're told to, as men, we're told to be a certain way, right? And there's this sort of like stereotype of be tough, don't show your emotions.
Sure.
Deal with it, go figure it out, and then come back, right? And one part that stuck with me from that was you've got to. You were almost comparing it to your digestive system, right? Yeah. It's gotta come out somehow. Otherwise, you're just gonna get backed up, and it's just going to get worse, and it's going to explode at some point, or whatever happens when you get so backed up.
Right? Yeah. No, and what you're going down now, the road is the emotional processing of things, right? And so a lot of times, as men, we were brought up to not really understand or deal with our emotions at all. In fact, it was almost like emotions were bad, or they were for women, or whatever, right? But the truth of it is, and certainly in leadership, if we're not properly processing emotions, dealing with frustration, dealing with anger, dealing with disappointment, and processing that, whether we're writing about it or whether we're having conversations about it, there's a flow that needs to happen so that those emotions actually get processed and leave us. If they don't leave us, they stay with us. And think about what anger does to you if it stays with you, right? And so certainly I have a parallel where I call it emotional digestion, just like our physical digestion. If we don't process what we've consumed, I mean, the only thing that's going to be on our mind is using the restroom.
Right.
That's it. Yeah. Like if you haven't gone to the bathroom in a couple of days, 3, 4, 5 days, you're like, oh my gosh. And then actually you can get sick. Yeah. Right. And so I think the same thing happens for us emotionally, is that we can bottle up all of these emotions, typically negative emotions, right? Because that's what, like, our body takes the good stuff that we eat and then gets rid of the waste. Right. So we can take the good emotions and keep those, right? Our spirit keeps those. But the negative emotions, if we don't process those and get them out, they will actually make us toxic from the inside out. Right. And then the way that we treat people and the way that we speak to people sometimes will explode. We'll do things that are not mindful or intentional because we haven't properly processed our emotions. Right. And that, to me, is more wisdom than it is male or female. Right. So we get told that, females are more emotional, or they have, they understand their emotions more, or they talk about it more, or they cry more, or whatever. Right. Emotions are emotions, male or female. And I think a certain thing for us to understand is the better that we can understand and manage and process their emotions, the better we can operate from a place of wisdom, rather than, I mean, if you think about a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old who's having a temper tantrum, like, we certainly don't want to be an adult like that. Or we don't want to be an adult who's gotten hurt feelings and now we go just hurting everybody else because, and so it's important that we grow and develop on that emotional side as leaders as well, because those we influence. I mean, do you know some leaders that have ever just shredded you?
Oh yeah.
Because and not just because of your mistake, but because it seemed like they just had something else going on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I just want to make sure that I myself am in the position where I am leading with intentionality. Right. I'm leading with a full heart. I'm leading with making sure that I'm not treating somebody else like trash because I've got stuff I'm not dealing with. Right. So that's the important work that we talked about earlier about being a leader, is like, it's deeper, work than it is just like communicating better or listening better. Like,
and it seems like it's a lot of the factors we talked about, right? Is you got to have the mindful aspect, right? You got to have, I don't know if it's the prideful aspect or whatever you would call it, but you have to feel good about yourself and who you are, right? To lead others, right? Almost like a leading by example sort of thing, and I think about what, how do men process emotions? How do guys process emotions? And I think one of the ways is community. Is the Better Men community, is that sort of not necessarily, come together emotional community, but is it a place where men can come and be open and figure that stuff out?
Absolutely, because we just it's a place where we're just going to talk about real life. We're going to talk, and there's no pulling any punches. Like, there's no hiding behind anything. And I lead that, right? I lead that, but I lead that with also sharing my dirty laundry. I want to make sure that they don't see me as like this guy that's got it all figured out. I see myself as a facilitator, and if there's anything leadership in me, is the courage to be able to go first and say, hey, this is where I'm not very good, right? But that the whole purpose of that is as a community, not just to talk about the stuff that's difficult because we do want to do that. But it's also to carve out this idea of who we want to become as men, and then work through that and encourage each other and push each other and support each other when things are difficult. So it is community that I think many of us are looking for as men. You know, when you're in high school, you got your buddies that you're going to see every day.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you're fortunate enough to be on a sports team or on a dance club or you know, in the chess team or whatever, where you may have community built in.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you go through college and then you get out into the real world and it's like, where's the community? How about the people that we see every day?
Right.
Well, sometimes that's our work, you know, our work folks, but those aren't necessarily people we would choose to do community with, right? We have to because we work with them.
Yeah.
But so this is an opportunity, I like to call it a locker room, where we get to get in there, you know, and be honest with each other and challenge each other and celebrate with each other, whatever it is, right? And so Better Men is, we hold retreats, we hold monthly meetings, and it's really about just personal development for men that are, you know, wanting to improve who they are.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is that one of your more recent ventures? Is that kind of something the most recent?
For the past couple of years, we did retreats in 21 and 22.
Wow.
Nice. And then I was looking for a way to stay more connected with guys, so we started our monthly men's group. And so we'll probably have 2 retreats this coming year and just keep building up. Well, actually looking to start in a couple of different cities in the new year to come too.
That's what I was going to ask. Is it just local right now? And
it's just local here to Myrtle Beach, but I'm looking at 2 different cities right now that will hopefully start expanding into.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'll try to wrap it up because I feel like there's a million different avenues you can always go with these, and it's you know, I was thinking it would go one way, kind of my brain. Like I said, you don't want to really script these things, but then you start talking, you figure out different things. So if people want to find you, whether it's for speaking, Better Men, you know, locally here, if they want to join the Mansour Basketball Academy, how do they find you? What's
certainly. My email is 12colinstevens@gmail.com.
Easy enough.
And then certainly I'm on all socials at the Colin Stevens, or you can go to my website. Really excited about it. Just had that crafted by a fantastic young man, thecolinstevens.com.
Right.
And so they can, you know, certainly query you through that. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. It was
Absolutely.
fun. We got to do it again. Maybe we can get, like I said, we have some mutual friends. So I was thinking maybe we could have a few more guys on here, but appreciate it. Like and subscribe. Hopefully we'll keep these episodes coming out. And until next time, see ya. Thank you.